up, everybody? Welcome to Truth and Transparency, Idaho4. It's an all new episode, all new day. It's Monday. So, all new original search warrant from 11/13, 2022. I will get to that here to close it all out. We're going to lead up to that, though. Real quick, just a reminder in case you guys are unaware, January 23rd, 2025. We have the transcript here of it was the suppression hearing. Ann Taylor called to the stand, a very important person. Matthew Gamet. Matthew Gamet is, and he's been the laboratory manager from Idaho State Police for 13 to 16 years. Okay. No stranger to what he's supposed to be doing. I want to read a quote really quick during his testimony. The DNA sample itself, that DNA sample was delivered by Moscow Police Department in person to them at Othram Labs. Question: did you have any role in that part? I did. Well, what did you do? Answer: I accompanied the officer from Boise down to Houston and down to the Othram laboratory. I didn't have possession of the sample, but I was with the investigator that did. You see that extra part there, right there? Like, he wants to say, I had nothing to do with the sample. I had nothing to do with the sample. And I want to point this out because it's really kind of interesting that he would just, like, that wasn't the question. Like, what was your role? You know? Again, I accompanied the officer from Boise down to Houston and down to Othram Laboratories. I didn't have possession of the sample, but I was with the investigator that did. Very bizarre, right? Well, it is very bizarre until you wonder why he's saying that. And you take a look at, I'm going to go over here to bring up good old Hector. Hector never lets me down. Hector, where you at? Where you at, Hector? Okay. Well, the first thing I want to point out again is that chain of custody database being changed months later by someone in the lab that didn't even work with the sheath or the vial. So here is this communication on February the 6th, 2023 at 4:23 p.m. Just to remind everybody, Riley Nolan wrote to Shannon, this is the reference sample that was sent to the FBI. The chain states it was returned to the submitting agency. You will need to request a change correction and ask that it be changed to, and then writes custody of evidence, disposition, meridian, and location released to FBI. Well, let's talk about this. Let's also remind everybody about a couple other things. Ready? 11/20/2022. This is from Dustin Blaker to Rylene. So he has her email. She included here. Just copy, cut, and paste. RE means that this is a response to they're using, it's the MOU for the genetic genealogy that they're about to use and about to employ through Othram, okay? This is on 11/20/2022 at 6:51 p.m. Guess who will arrive in the morning at 11:21 to pick up this piece? Blaker. So Blaker and Rollins, they're in communication. They're emailing each other. This is when they were doing everything by the book. And so just a reminder, The Moscow Police Department is giving permission for the Idaho State Police Forensics Lab to transmit all completed lab reported to Jeff Talbot. That's who's going to be able to get it. Go ahead. We allow this to happen. The Moscow Police Department is also giving permission to release any lab results information to Idaho State Police Detective Darren Gilbertson, Idaho State Police Detective Jeff Talbot, Latah County Prosecutor Bill Thompson, and Latah County Prosecutor Ashley Jennings. Again, I have to emphasize this. And so I'm going to break it down into layman's terms. What this means is on 11/20, Detective Blaker is telling the lab, hey, everything, when you get it, when it's truly, when you have the results, any reports, you can give them, and these are the people that you can give them to. So who's on this list? Well, on this list is right here, Detective Jeff Talbot, Latah County Prosecutor Bill Thompson, Latah County Prosecutor Ashley Jennings, and Darren Gilbertson. Sergeant Dustin Blaker, Moscow Police Department. He is authorizing this. Okay. Then this is Rylene, and she's like, I had a conversation with the D2 investigator, and which is Detective Talbot, and the Latah County prosecutor. A meeting with Matthew Gamet. Kate Dace, and then she got married, so it's White. So if you ever seen anything that says Katie White, Katie Dace White, that's her. Riley Nolan, Bill Thompson, Ashley Jennings, Darren Gilbertson, Jeffrey Talbot, and Dustin Blaker. Do you guys see how Payne is nowhere to be seen there in this mix? Nowhere, never, ever will he be seen there. Okay. But Payne is considered the case agent, right? Now, back on 11/20/2022, when nobody could expect anything, like where this case would end up, none of these people could ever imagine where this case would end up, right? And that this would ever be seen. Because if you think that they ever thought that, y'all crazy. And I'm going to prove to you that they never thought that. But once they began to realize that it would or could potentially, everything changed. So I want to remind everybody, here it is. Meeting with Matthew Gamet. Matthew Gamet, right? This is why Ann Taylor is fucking with this man. Meeting with Matthew Gamet. I said all those names. Reviewed reports issued thus far. Layton's 2 biology screenings and 1 DNA. Reviewed reports issued thus far. Well, that's funny because those reports, I would love to know, why aren't you saying like the number that goes with those reports? But the only thing that we can, it's easy for me to go back and realize that, well, based on this date, there's only, it eliminates everything that could be possibly past 11/20. And so what did I do? I was like, okay, well, let's go and eliminate what reports could it possibly only include then? Well, any report that was from 11/16 to 11/20, because the lab didn't get involved until stuff was transported to them. First thing being the sheath. You get what I'm saying? So you have from 11/16 to 11/20. And this is what they're saying is that they were able to review, to talk about. So it should tell us some things, which is they're pumping out these reports like, whoa, fast, right? Yes, absolutely. They're getting something and then boom, they know everything that there is to know about it. Like, here it is. So after reviewing those reports thus far, which were the latent reports, 2 biology screening, and 1 DNA. It says, discuss the unknown male on the knife sheath and that there was not a CODIS hit at the state level. Discuss the unknown male on the knife sheath. Now, this is where I'm just like, whoa. We all now know We all now know, though, that the knife sheath produced 2 unknown males. Okay. And so my question is that when Ann Taylor would have went out to hire her experts, okay, she has to be saying this. Hey, I have a question. Here's this sheath. Here's what they say came back on this sheath. And there was this mixture that was with the victims, but they were able to separate it. And they knew that it was a male and it did not match the other, like the unknown male A. Why aren't they listing that as unknown male B right off the rip? Wouldn't you have that? Like, that to me is just like, that's a logical question. I would want to know that. I think all 500 people that are watching this live are thinking to themselves, yeah, Leanna, you make a really good point, right? If you knew that, how do you not know that? If you truly tested what you say you tested, which was the sheath and 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, how are you not understanding and knowing that you have a male that's mixed with one of the female victims, and that, like, why would they not know that until, or that they did know it, but that they're not even talking about it? Is that something that's normal? Right? And probably somebody told Anne, no, that's not normal. That's definitely not normal. I can't imagine that somebody would be like, yeah, that's normal. So let's go back to here, which is, all right, so we discussed that this unknown male on the knife sheath, and that there was not a CODIS hit if there was not one at the state level, and we're waiting for a response from a rush search request to the national database. All right. We never again hear about anything. If you look through the 100 from 1 to 57 pages that has to do with any of these like notes, bench notes, they never talk about, hey, we finally heard back from, and it's not in the national database. But right here, if no hits, then we discuss that molecular genealogy for unknown male. Bill Thompson authorized pursuing this avenue in the event of no CODIS hit. MOU sent to Ashley Jennings for signatures at the request of the 3 agencies involved. So that would be the Idaho State Police. Three agencies involved. Moscow Police Department, Idaho State Police. Who's the 3rd agency? We'll look at the date. We know that the FBI is involved by 11/20. It's got to be the FBI. So, but they refuse to say the FBI's name. At the request of the 3 agencies involved, the lab deleted the distribution list for reports. And Rylene will send copies of all issued reports / note packets to Detective Talbot. Period. Now listen. At the time when you first read this, you don't know what's important because you have to like put all the pieces together. Detective Talbot is the same dude that literally ruined 2 items of evidence by dousing it with Blue Star. We didn't know that. When I'm reading this, I don't know that he did that. Now I know that he did that. So I need to bring this back up. Detective Talbot. Shit, man, what are you doing? Well, everything's going to go through Detective Talbot, and then he's going to brief all of us. Well, guess who Detective Talbot is like boys with? Blaker. They did all the searches together. When they went to Brian's apartment, it was Detective Talbot and Blaker. Those are the 2 dudes that we saw in that body cam before they entered the apartment. That was Talbot, and that was Blaker. Okay? Now, it was also requested that the lab not release results to anyone else, including our chain of command above Matthew. What? Like, if I'm Ann Taylor, I'm like, wait, what is this? District 2 will take responsibility for updating command staff. Matthew will be in contact if we need to pursue genealogy. Now, this is why Ann Taylor called Matthew Gamet as a witness, because of that sentence right there. Matthew Gamet will be in contact if we need to pursue genealogy. Now, going to this, having Matthew Gammon on the stand. Okay. Now this is going to hit so different. So Judge Hippler says, and you may call your next witness. She says, Matthew Gammon. Whoa. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give now before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Matthew Gammon, having been duly sworn, testifies as follows. Ann Taylor says, good morning. Good morning. Will you please state your name? Does all that shit, right? How are you employed? I'm employed with Idaho State Police Forensic Services, and I am a laboratory systems director. Director. There's a director, and then there's a manager. He's the director. So Ann Taylor called the lab director and the manager because everything must flow through them. I don't care about Tara Martinez. I don't care about Catherine White and Dace and all these people. At the end of the day, your supervisors are the ones. So she goes straight to it, right? How long have you had that role? Well, I've been with the Idaho State Police Forensic Services for about 16 years. And I believe I've held this current role for about 10, says Matthew Gammon. Now, we're going to get to the part that matters, which is, okay. She asks, did you work on a contract with Othram? He says, I need to answer this question in a little bit different way than you asked it. So if you'll give me some leeway, sure. I did not work specifically on the contract with Othram. However, I worked on the specifications that led to a contract being awarded to Othram. So it's like, I made up here, these are the qualifications that we need. This is what we're looking to outsource our work. So then here, apply, and then it's like a bidding process. Awesome. Great. So she says, Ann Taylor says, will you share with us what you do recall from asking people? She says, he says, so things in that contract would specify that they use the interim policy. Okay. And then she says, well, when you say the interim policy, are you referring to the Department of Justice interim policy? Yes. Okay. Did you care if they were an accredited lab? Because they were not an accredited lab at the time. And then he kind of circle jerks around that. Now, okay. So, question. How about retention of data or the ability to go back and rebuild the work or look at the work that was done? Answer. So we retain, in our cases, we retain our electronic data. We retain any other notes and things that we make as part of our case records, part of our case file. We provide those to the investigators and to the court as a normal business practice. Question. Did Othram do that? Answer. In this case, I believe they gave us a report or what was identified as a preliminary report. The contract specifies that they would keep any data or other things associated with that. For our purposes, we were most concerned that the data or anything else not be released to any other parties. And so our concern was more about the data security, data privacy. And so in this case, I don't know if they have other data or other records that have been kept, that they have retained. We had asked them as part of the termination in this case of our work with them that they would preserve those things or that they would communicate with both the prosecutor's office and with Moscow Police Department. Ashley Jennings, Bill Thompson, right here. Boom. Like, are you kidding me? So you're saying that Othram would directly work with the prosecutor? Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying, to a T. Ann says, okay, so keep it or tell somebody before you get rid of it. Am I understanding that? And he says, our specification was that it stopped our process with them, that we were no longer in a contractual obligation with them on this case. And it's like, Matthew Gamet is telling us without saying the words, listen, Othram and the FBI had a fucking relationship after our relationship. And we want nothing to do with what the fuck Othram did with the FBI. He said, essentially, we were transferring ownership of everything and anything on this case between them, Othram, and Moscow Police Department and the prosecutor's office. In quotes. Question. The report that you ended up receiving from them, are you aware that that report doesn't provide details of how they did their work? Answer. I have seen the report, yes. I have seen what was in the report. Well, would you agree that what's in the report is far different than what the Idaho State Police Forensics Lab produces by way of notes and photographs in connection with its work? So we've just now dissected over the past week since 10:30. Well, when did they ever drop this? So it's been like, it's probably like 11 days now. These 2,500 pages that we've dissected, right? We're seeing all these pictures of stuff. We're seeing analytical notes. We're seeing you're documenting shit when something's happening. Well, Matthew Gammon wanted no part of this, which was on 11/21, the day that Blaker showed up. Why he said, I have no idea. I was just there to accompany shit. Well, let's zoom in here. 11/21/2022. Item 2, opened and extract tube for item 1.1 removed and 20 UL aliquoted into a new tube, repack original tube, new tube packaged in item 22. And she makes this note on 11/21/2022. Do you think that Ann Taylor had this at the time that she was questioning this dude? So, wait a second. What happened here is that, so we're going to get to this, but I'm gonna leave this right here. Question. We're going to skip over here. Okay. Ann Taylor asks, so some of the documents that Idaho State Police Forensics Lab produces that show us those results, those would be like similar to what you would expect to see with an S&P. Answer. I would assume. Again, I'm not qualified in FIG analysis, so I can't speak to what documents they may or may not produce. Question. Let's move from there. Thank you for that. And let's talk about Othram being involved in the case that winds up being why we're here today. What communication did you have with Othram on the early end of that process? Answer. Because it's one thing if Othram isn't documenting, okay, but it would be a totally other, like, why isn't Idaho State Police Lab not documenting? For example, let's see here. Where's the March one? Okay, here we go. On February 7th, 2023. Remember, I showed you guys the email that we started with? Oh, February 6th. And then on the 7th, they responded. But let's look at this. So, February 7th, 2023. At the time, DNA report number 26 was issued. And that's 2/6/2023. The chain of custody stated that item 108 had been returned to the submitting agency, which is what the disposition of the report states, item 108 had actually been sent to the FBI. Okay, see this right here? I just want you to think about this. Okay, now hang on. What communication did you have with Othram on the early end of that process of getting them involved? Answer. So to my recollection, our early communication on this case was providing them with DNA that they would be able to develop, hopefully an investigative lead for us on a case. After that sample, to my knowledge, had been that we had followed our processes through and that we had put a sample into CODIS, that we had not received any hits off of CODIS, and that we would proceed with the next step of testing. We did have a contractual relationship with them since early in, I believe, 2021. He's lying. It was early in September of 2022. Same year, just a month before this whole thing happened. But he testified here in 2025, though. So, question. Was this the first case that Othram worked pursuant to that contract? Answer. Really important here. No, I don't believe so. So this was not their first rodeo with IGG. Question. How did they get the DNA? Answer. The DNA sample itself? That DNA sample was delivered by Moscow Police Department in person to them at Othram Labs. Question. Did you have any role in that part? Answer. I did. Question. What did you do? A. Answer. I accompanied the officer from Boise down to Houston and down to the Othram laboratory. I didn't have possession of the sample, but I was with the investigator that did. That's his answer really quick. Question. After that sample was delivered, did you have communications with Othram further? Yes. Exactly. Where is it? Where is this? The next time we see anything to do with this room at all, you have to go to right here. Take a look at this. On March 13th, 2023, again, Catherine, it says right here, reason, no longer required because they're deleting something. Sequence 9. Comments. So I'm going to make it bigger and then I'm going to zoom in. Comments. Assignment created for IGG. No report will be issued as no new testing was performed. Okay. They made on 11/21, because I'm going to show you some more stuff down the road here. But on 11/21, when they determined that they were taking this out and outsourcing it to Othram, they created an assignment for it. What that means is that just like anything, it'd be like when something would come into the lab and we're going to work on something. It's an assignment. When they released this DNA, this portion, here you go, here's your little vial. That created an assignment. And because it's like out on assignment, they're doing something with that. Okay. Well, here, that assignment was created in 11/21 on March 13th, 2023. Now, these dates become really, really important. Is this something that potentially Ann Taylor could have seen, and she sees this in these communications, and she sees this right here, an assignment created for IGG. And then they're all saying, what the fuck, IGG? Investigative genetic genealogy. Are you kidding me? So is this something, when I've been saying, I was like, hey, I'm telling you, Ann Taylor had to come across something where she starts developing questions that are in her requests that she's asking. She saw all. No, she did not. Because stuff wasn't given to her. They held back all of this shit. It's all when Ann Taylor got to actually see this stuff. And if you look at this date, 3/13, remember on 3/24/2023, that's when she put a different request in. And then Ashley Jennings and Bill, like, yeah, here, look at us. We responded on March 29th. Well, were you guys so stupid as to send this and that they actually looked at the stuff and that they read these communications and that she saw this, or because Ann Taylor had to see something, because her requests start going into all the DNA testing and using the word investigative genetic genealogy. And so if you look at this time, look at this, March 13th. But they created an assignment for it, which in all of that assignment, that would mean any correspondence, every time that you would talk to Othram, Matthew, you would go into your fucking electronic tablets, and just like anybody's typing in here when they have a phone conversation with somebody, you would be typing in under that assignment everything that you're discussing with whoever it is over there at Othram, or whatever it has to do with IGG, every time that you are having a phone conversation. So listen to this bullshit. Okay. Well, after the sample was delivered, did you have communications with Othram further? Yes, he says. Well, what were those? She asks. Answer. So I had communications to my memory with them about what type of analysis we were asking them to do. Also, what type of searching. I remember they asked specifically for consent to do certain types of searching. We had to authorize things through memos and whatnot of them doing certain searching. Specifically, I believe it was family tree DNA that they needed an authorization for. I remember having significant discussion with them about why STR testing and if or how that would be accomplished. Now, because of my relationships with certain people, that I'm able to ask questions about this. And this is where the story gets blown up. Ann Taylor says, why did you want Othram to do YSTR testing? Answer. So the reason for YSTR testing is to utilize different investigative databases that might be out there. I don't believe in this case we ever did YSTR testing. A lot of the discussion was around preservation of the sample. Oh my God. Do you guys remember just a couple months ago in September when Kristen Middleman said how much of the DNA was available? That there was just like so much that she could just keep on reproducing and doing and testing like a crazy bunny if she wanted to. Do you guys remember that? No? We'll just go listen to what she said. She said there was so much of the sample. This wasn't just a little bit that we're dealing with. There was so much of it. And I agree with her. I agree that there was, which makes it questionable that it was touch DNA. But yeah. So for him to say these words, a lot of the discussion was around preservation of the sample, or as much of the sample we could preserve. And so our recommendation to them was to not proceed with that type of testing at this time, because they wanted to preserve the sample. Matthew Gamet is either lying and saying this to get in front of something, to act like he doesn't know about what the fuck, because maybe the quantities are off. Okay. But there's a huge problem right here with his answer and what Kristen Middleman has said. And no wonder that Othram has not responded to me. Okay. I've asked Othram, hey, I have questions. This is what people said. Just, hey, correct the record, man. Because what you're saying and what you have said is different from sworn testimony under oath by a lab director. He's saying that a lot of the discussion was around preservation of the sample. Well, we wouldn't have to guess if you would have just, I don't know, this sequence number 9 here that you were supposed to be putting everything that you were doing about IGG on the record and writing about reports. Like when you're talking to people, you're supposed to be updating this. Hey, I talked to so-and-so. This is where we're at. Because listen to how many times he says he starts talking to them. He says after the whole preservation that, and so our recommendation to them was not to proceed with the type of testing at this time, to kind of see where we were able to go with the traditional SNP testing with the whole genome sequencing. Well, then I talked to my source and they said, you can just pull the Y from a whole genome sequencing. So the middlemen would know that. And so that they would never ask Matthew Gamet about why TSR testing. That's utterly bullshit, because you wouldn't do that. Nobody would do that, because you can literally pull out the YSTR in the whole genome sequencing. And so right now what he's giving is a fucking, either he needs to be fired, Matthew Gamet, or he's lying, because he would know this. This is just so 101, basic. And then we would maybe potentially revisit the YSTR testing. He continues to say, I do remember some discussion with David Middleman at Authram about if they were able to bootstrap some of the whole genome sequencing in order to develop a Y profile that could be searchable for the data that they had already developed, instead of using additional sample to specifically develop a YSTR profile or any kind of Y profile. Literally all he does is just keep re-emphasizing in his testimony, sworn under oath, that they are so concerned about preserving this sample size. Okay. Now, question. She says, Ansel says, what does that mean? Bootstrapping. Take me back. They have this DNA sample, and then have they done those steps to get to their SNP, like before you want bootstrapping done? Or at what stage are you talking about bootstrapping? Answer. Essentially, it was our understanding that they were in the process of, or had already obtained, a whole genome sequencing profile. And so our question to them was, is there a way to develop a YSTR profile from the genetic information that you already have through the other method of testing? Question. And that's what you mean by bootstrap? Add a different kind of analysis? Correct. Why would you want to do that? She asks. Again, to see if there was a potential to search wide databases that might be available out there to identify genetic lineages. Well, what does genetic lineages mean? Answer. So a Y chromosome is passed down from father to son. And so we would be looking to see if we could identify a family line through tracking the Y chromosome DNA from father to son, to grandfather, all the way down to grandson, and potentially over multiple generations. So it would tie us into a family line that could be investigated further. Question. Did Authram bootstrap and get the YSTR for you? Answer. To my knowledge, they never did anything with YSTR testing. And to my recollection, with my discussions with David, that wasn't possible with the data that he had at that point. Shut the fuck up. Wait, what? Dude. Question. It was impossible? Like, Anne's just like, wait, did I just hear him? It was impossible? Answer. It was not possible. Correct. Thank you, she says. Thank you. Answer. After she says thank you, there was no pending question, but he wants to add. He says, I do not believe that was attempted. Again, I'm not familiar with the technology that he would have had to have used to do such a thing, so I'm not aware if that was possible. If the technology didn't exist, I just don't know. After she says thank you, he realized he fucked up so royally bad, and then he tries to. Matthew Gamet says, I do not believe, like, there was no question pending after she says thank you for that clarification of that answer. He wanted to go ahead and say the rest of that. Answer says, okay, question. Okay, at some point, did Authram talk to you about the work that they were doing? Yes. So she's tracking all of these times that they had conversations. Because why? Because she knows that it doesn't matter what Authram does or doesn't do. We know what you do, Idaho State Police Lab. We know what you guys have to do. Okay? Look at Rylene spoke about submitting a reference. She talked to Jeffrey Talbot on the phone. What does she do? She documents it. Where is Matthew Gamet doing anything of the sort in any of these? Nowhere. 57 pages and not once can you see that motherfucker typing a damn thing in. In fact, what we get here is Catherine Dace bending over and taking one for the team and going in here and deleting. Catherine Dace White goes in here and deletes this entry, which is supposed to be designed for all the communication that would have been had with anything that has to do with the IGG. So right here it says, case updated audit log, examine key, 257833, section bio, sequence 9. Assignment status changed. Admin closed. They closed it. Reason, no longer required. Comments, assignment created for IGG, no report will be issued as no new testing was performed. They make it seem like that they didn't do it. How else would you take that if you saw that? It would make it seem like that they just discussed IGG and then decided not to do it. How else would you take that? How else could you potentially take that? You could potentially take it the way that I just said it. If somebody was to quickly review these documents, okay? But you would have to look at multiple, you'd have to ask for, because they're not providing this, you'd have to ask for multiple things that Ann Taylor did to compare. And what I'm going to show you guys is say, okay, here, this is how I found it. Question. Okay. At some point, did you talk to Othram about the work that they were doing? Yes. Oh, and what did they have a recommendation? They did have a recommendation. They had at least one recommendation that I remember. Question, what was that conversation? Or when was that conversation? You know, we should just be able to tell when that was, but we can't because you didn't do any of these. When was that conversation? Well, I don't remember exactly when that conversation happened. Well, I can tell you why you don't remember. Because you didn't document it. And if you think this is the first case that they did this bullshit in, anybody that's in prison right now in Idaho, if you don't file a fucking appeal, you're an idiot. You're an absolute fucking idiot. And if you don't use this case, you're I would think that you may be not, like, you might be in a coma. When was the conversation? I don't remember exactly when the conversation happened. Question. Well, let's put it between, when did they get the DNA to start with? So they got the DNA November 22nd, I believe. Okay. And when were they notified to stop work? I believe the official notification was on December 10th, if I remember correctly. So when they come back, I just can't believe that Ann didn't say, well, you were subpoenaed to be here and we asked you to bring your notes and your logs and stuff like that. Would it help you to refresh by looking at any, logs? That's what I would have said. And I would want him to say on the record that he has none. That's just me. So when they came back to you with some recommendations, where was that in relation to the stop work? So you said November 22nd, they got it. And then on December 10th is the stop work. So what are we dealing with here? He says probably early in December, I'm guessing. The actual work, like the laboratory work, well, what I would call the wet work in the laboratory would be the first couple of weeks, probably before they would have turned it over to a genealogist to be searching, the database and doing all that stuff. Well, go back and listen to what Kristen Middleman and David Middleman have said in this case. They were able to develop a wet work profile within 48 motherfucking hours. 48 hours. I gave that to two of my sources and they said they spit out their drinks. They said, what? I said, yeah, 48 hours. Boom. Done. They said they were able to do S&P profile within 48 hours. I said, yeah. And then they said, okay, how many days did it take them to obtain a letterhead that was from the agency to allow them then to put the S&P into the database as a law enforcement kit? How long did that take to obtain? That was one of my questions. It's not like you or me putting it in as just idiots over here, citizens. They're putting it in as a law enforcement kit. They have to pay for that. They have to get approval, all that jazz. Okay. So he says over here, now listen to what his answer is. He's even saying that the wet work, what the middleman said took 48 hours, he's saying would have taken a week to two. He said would have been the first couple of weeks probably before they would have turned it over to a genealogist to then be searching the databases and those sort of things. He's saying over here that would have been like a couple weeks to do the wet work. That's what he's testifying to on and under oath. Question. Ann says, to make sure I'm with you, wet work means DNA sample to where we get to the whole genome sequencing and then where we get to an SNP. I know I'm skipping steps, but that's what the wet work is. And he says, correct, the laboratory work. So anything that would be done in the physical laboratory, handling the sample, putting it into tubes, adding liquids, things of that nature, that would be done in a laboratory. Sequencing on an instrument, that would all be done in the first week, several weeks. Question. So after they have a recommendation for you, so a couple weeks just to get the SNP, but Othram said they got it in 48 hours. Okay. He's saying it would have been a couple weeks. Okay. So after that, they have a recommendation for you. Answer, correct. What's their recommendation to you? Answer, the recommendation to my memory, to my recall, was that they had several individuals that had the potential to be of interest in this investigation. They asked us if, to further their family tree building, if we could be in contact with individuals. I'm going to stop myself right there, and it says right here, they asked us if, to further their family tree building, which would have to be out a couple weeks from the wet work. So if he believes the wet work would have taken them to, I don't know, beginning to like December 1st through the 7th, we're talking about 2 weeks. If they had it on, they didn't start working at it until, if you can go off of the middlemen's, that said they worked it on November 24th because they did it on Thanksgiving. And he believes it took a week or two just for the wet work. Okay. So he's now talking about it being in terms of that it's with the genealogist because that's who's building a family tree is the genealogist. So let's even just be kind and say, hey, they worked on it on November 24th. Everything was done and handled with as far as wet work by December 1st. Okay, let's just go with that number. Then, so he's saying they asked us if to further their family tree building. Okay, so you guys asked for help, what, off the rip, after a week maybe, December 7th. So think about this. They asked us if to further their family tree building, if we could be in contact with individuals and see if they were willing to contribute information into the database that they were using in order to further the family tree building and further the geological work. Well, let me just tell you something, okay? This is common sense to my brain and logic to my brain, but maybe to other people, they're like, oh, I see now. You guys, if I can give you names of people to have them put their DNA in a database, and that's going to help me grow my tree, that means that I don't have them in the tree that I am building, but I know that they would be in line in my tree that I'm building. Okay? And how would I know that? Because I'm working the tree legally or ethically and unethically at the same time. So then therefore I'm able to see, hey, if I could have this person, this person, this person put their DNA into law enforcement, okayed databases, then I'm going to be able to continue on my path. But without these people, my path gets broken. My path, what I can see over here and how I'm able to see all of this and connect these, these matches is because of this little cluster right here. And that cluster is saying that they do not approve of the government looking at their shit. Okay. So think about this. If you're going to come to me and tell me that you say, hey, you need to go get these 4 brothers to get them to upload their DNA again and allow law enforcement to be able to search it. Okay. So if you do that, right? If you do that, and if you know that, then that means that you have already looked and peeked behind the curtain, right? So it's like, hey, I know this because I'm doing it simultaneously. I'm doing one end of it unethically and going into all the databases. And at the same time, I'm doing it ethically and only in these 2. And I'm tracking, okay, here, if I'm able to get these, then it would continue my path legally or ethically. Ready? So, what was the recommendation to you? The recommendation to my recall, was that they had several individuals that had the potential to be of interest in this investigation. They asked us if, to further their family tree building, if we could be in contact with individuals and see if they were willing to contribute information into the databases that they were using in order to further the family tree building and further their work, right? Question. And we're in a closed setting here, so I'm going to ask to give me that last name. I don't recall that last name. I'm sorry. Was it your understanding that these were 4 brothers? Yes. Okay. What did you do in relationship to these 4 brothers? Answer. So we did some cursory work, just looking in the public accessible information. Like literally we were just doing Google searches and things of that nature. What our approach was is we didn't want to be approaching people, especially with, an investigation of this nature that really had nothing to do with anything. We just wanted to make sure there was some reason why Othram Laboratories was asking us to go and ask these individuals to put their DNA into the database that law enforcement can search. Listen to how he says that. We're not asking you to put your spit. Your spit's already been uploaded, but it's into the database that doesn't allow law enforcement search. How the fuck would they know that? How would Othram know that, man? There's only one way, and that's because they're looking, because it was uploaded as a non-law enforcement kit, and it was uploaded potentially as a law enforcement kit. Or they're able to work backwards and be able to eliminate and see, like, well, if we didn't have this, because they're X out. Like, think about how fucked that is. And these are the people that are going around saying, yeah, IGG should be used right off the rip. That's an integrity thing for me. Well, it seems that you don't know how to follow instructions. It seems like you'd be the first person to break policy. Now, these are 4 brothers that are down the strings of like, and then I asked one of my sources, I said, listen, if you're asking somebody that you need to be putting in, hey, we need their DNA, blah, blah. And she said, if you need to do all of that, you are so far fucking off. You're not getting this shit like that. You are so in the weeds. It's not even funny if you're needing this. And then I said, well, what if you're doing it? And I explained what I just explained to you guys. And they both said, well, I think that you already answered your question on the ethics of all of this. That you're working this in a completely different way than anybody would ever do if you're a true genealogist. And I said, yeah, that's what I thought. So Ann says, now I know that you can't remember the last name of those brothers, but we're here today and Brian Culver's name has been on the news for 2 years. You know his name. That wasn't the name, was it? No, that was not the last name. Well, after you did the cursory work and the family tree, what was the next thing that you did in relation to these four brothers? Well, we at some point, and I don't remember exactly when, we had asked our investigator, Detective Vicky Gooch, with the Idaho State Police, to reach out to one of the brothers we believe had put information into a genealogical database. Right there, it says it. He then says it. Hey, reach out to this one of these brothers that we believe had put information into one of the databases and ask him if he would be willing to upload that into one of these databases so that they could further build out. And this is all that matters, is right here. How in the fuck did you know that these people were in databases that weren't law enforcement databases? That means you were searching databases that weren't law enforcement. You were doing them both at the same time. And this is absolutely fucking crazy. Looking back at this now, who Matthew Gamet was, and he took the stand, and he's literally going to be testifying. And now that we have all of these type of reports, Matthew, you don't need to be guessing about a damn thing. Every time that you were talking to somebody, you should have been writing what? Everything down. You should have been making what? Documentation of every time you talk to somebody. But then what do we have here? We have your little bitch girl, Catherine Dace, come through here and deletes. Because she was told, hey, on 3/13/2023, no longer required. No longer required. Comments. Well, this assignment created for the IGG work, no report will be used or needed and issued. I can't even believe, like, wow. What do you mean? And they were trying to say that because no new testing was performed. Fuck yeah, there was testing performed. They made an SNP SNP profile, Othram did. This is a goddamn fucking lie. An absolute fucking lie right here. Catherine Dace, you shouldn't have a fucking job. Matthew Gamet, you should be fired. What's the big problem here? Oh, that's right. Because you guys hid behind IGG. Who's the person that suggested to use IGG off the rip? That is who needs to be put on the hot seat. Because they knew, hey, we're going to act like we got there this way. We're going to play it this way. But they knew that that's not how they were going to be able to get to him. But we can if we do certain things. But that's truly how we're like, because this name was already in the database. This name was put in on 11/20 between, now I've even found something else that could potentially take us back to 11/21. Let me show you my next piece. I think everybody should have an issue with this and how this was all done. Item 2 just opened. Hold on. Oh. Oh, here it is. Perfect. This is what I was looking for. Okay. On 11/25/2022, the same date that Brian Culber's vehicle is registered on a spreadsheet, allegedly, from the Pullman officers over there that are working with Blaker. Okay. On that same day, Rylene hits up Jeffrey Talbot. And I said, why would Jeffrey Talbot be hit up? Well, because he must have been the person that was involved in whatever she wants to talk about. And it was a phone call. And you see how it says phone log. Just like how Rylene Nolan was documenting anytime she would talk to somebody. Matthew Gamet, you needed to do the same thing. You need to do the same thing, and you did not. You did not. And so here, spoke about submitting a reference sample, from a possible suspect, okay? and blood swabs from blank and blank, and 2 swabs from house. I agreed to these items, she says. I was unable to access DNA tracker. Their evidence person, Tim Smallridge, stated he could no longer access pre-log and could not pre-log the items. I said, you've got to be fucking kidding me. So what that means is that these skipped going ever, in my opinion. Here's Tim Smallridge saying, I couldn't pre-log items. Well, how the fuck does that happen? How does that happen? What I think they say is that once we get to 100, we couldn't enter more of them or some shit like that, okay? Some bullshit. Okay, well, we can't help that you're an idiot, Tim. Because who would ever have something like this be... Dude, there's hella evidence that comes in on different cases, but you're really going to set up a system that only allows 100 pieces of evidence to go into for a case? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. That seems really low to me. But Riley says that they have a captain. He's bringing down anyway and want to send the items. I said I did not have anyone in the office who could assist with the pre-log, so we would just take them as unlogged and get them taken in on Monday. Okay. If they are able to pre-log, please do. That's what I told him. If not, we will enter them manually. He agreed. These items did not need to be rushed and would be worked in our normal queue. Then on 11/28, called to discuss items, plural, received. I asked about the glove, as we had not discussed it, and there was no additional information on the package. He stated the case agent from Moscow Police Department collected it from the parking area of the house and stated there is blood on the glove. I asked if no blood on the glove, do they think it is related, and do we need to collect wearer? He said they would cross that bridge when they get to it. He does not think the glove will be suitable for Layton's. Who doesn't? Who? Jeffrey Talbot? Jeff Talbot never fucking saw the shit. Jeff Talbot's going to sit here and say that he saw those gloves? What? When? When did Jeff Talbot see the gloves? I'm really just dying curious. My curiosity. Whoo-wee. The gloves that had the blood that were outside that somehow y'all motherfuckers missed. How the hell do you know you didn't collect them? They were put then into evidence and they have the wrong day there. Like literally homeboy took them up just days after. You went out and signed out the gloves to take a look at them. Think about all that, because none of that happened. But Jeffrey Talbot's over here saying, I just don't think that they're going to be good for Layton's or anything like that. Oh, you just don't think so? Said the same guy that doused Blue Star all over shit. Okay. I don't care what Jeffrey Talbot thinks. He let literally Payne and Ashley Jennings and Officer Smith in front of him while he's putting on booties. He doesn't have the cahoons to say, hey, what are you guys doing? You're not trampling into my crime scene. You need to get back out here and you need to put on these booties. And I would really appreciate if you put masks on. Since you guys are all about masks in Moscow, you know, segregate and all. Why don't you guys put some masks on? Bottom line is Jeffrey Talbot, who's your fucking daddy? Who's your daddy? Because literally embarrassing to watch that body cam while you're over here putting on booties and Frick, Frack, and Fricker are all just going to waltz through that motherfucker. And you're putting on booties. Why did you even put on booties? And then you let them just trample through there again. like they've been the whole damn time. But that just shows me somebody that has no cahoons to say, yo, what are you doing? You guys all need to put on booties. You guys can't go in through my crime scene. If we're going to be here, my name's attached to this shit. Please step over here. Booties, masks. Fucking bitch, put your hair in a hairnet. I don't know. But I would just, like, my name's on something. It's my rules. It's my ass on the line. It's my rules. Get fucked. But hey, this is somebody that just, in my opinion, he's somebody's bitch every other day of the week. Sorry, it's how I see it. No cahoons. They're in Bill Thompson's ass. Now, reading this, it says he does not think that the gloves will be suitable for Layton's. Why? How? Okay. I asked about the 2 items labeled blood swab, as there is no information on the package about where they are from. He said those are from blank. How did he know? How does he fucking know? You know, how does he know? I told him we would be returning the brrr. He agreed to this and said it could be shipped. Just ship it. Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Awesome job. Phenomenal work here. Let's talk about that one more time. This is the reference sample that was sent to the FBI. The chain states it was returned to the submitting agency. You will need to request a chain correction and ask that it be changed to custody of evidence, disposition meridian, and location released to the FBI. Oh, really? Was it? And then the question is who from the FBI got that? Right? Who from the FBI received that? Who? To close out your timeline here and to just show how ridiculous this was and the lies. So we reached out to one of the brothers we believed had put in information into a database and asked him if he would actually be willing to upload it into this database so we can actually search it, even though we already just searched it unethically. But hey, can we just do it this way? She was, I believe, initially able to contact the individual, meaning Detective Gooch. He was skeptical about her contact. And so there was another contact, a 3-way call. So all of this shit's going on. And Matthew Gamet, who's been running this lab and knows the protocols, never documents a single motherfucking thing he does. But yet he wants these people. He wants these people who work underneath him to do that. But Matthew Gamet, you don't have to do a goddamn thing. Because who? You're Matthew Gamet? Yeah, okay. During the time leading up to that phone call, when you were building your family tree, I know none of the 4 brothers had the last name Koberger. Is that correct? Yeah, no, they didn't. That name never came up. Okay, so after the brother said that, don't contact me ever again, what was the next thing that you guys did? And Taylor, I thought, man. So I don't remember exactly when the time frame was with that, but I know that there were active discussions about having a phone call with the agency and the prosecutor's office about the work that was being done. Well, that's funny because Riley Nolan said that this was going to take like 60 days. So why the fuck are you up anybody's ass after a week? You know, listening to Riley Nolan testify to any of this bullshit. Yep. Give us 60 days. Give us 60 days. Okay. So you're going to sit here and tell me that you were up Otham's ass every other fucking day asking, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? I highly doubt that. If Otham told you, give me 60 days. And if Otham's the best, why are you up their ass? Like, to take it from their hands to give it to who? Oh, we're not going to give it to the best. We're just going to give it to the cheaters. They were requesting updates from us. So basically, the prosecutor's office was blowing up Idaho State Police lab is what is in this testimony. And they were requesting updates from us of what it is that Otham's laboratory is doing. Where are you in this investigation? Those types of things, he says. We were giving them updates via telephone. I don't give a fuck if you were giving them updates via the telephone. Look at what Rylene's doing. She's making phone calls to people. And guess what she's doing? She's over here documenting what the hell's going on. Phone call, phone log. Shove it up your ass, Matt. I'm so hot over this shit. Okay? Because here Rylene's doing everything by the book, right? Maybe Rylene should be the director and maybe Matthew take a back seat. Stop working for the fucking man and start calling out these motherfuckers, women. Come on. Look at all the women that are involved in actually the forensic science of everything. Look at it all. Women heavy. Women heavy. You know why? Because we have the brains. So stop lying for these fat fucking bastards. Stop. Go get the job you want. Call them out. They're cheating. They're lying. They're pieces of shit. And meanwhile, you're doing all of the work for them. Stop working for them. Now, we were giving them updates via the telephone, blah, blah, blah. Just giving them updates. You know, we've been delivering the sample. We've done this sort of thing. And then they requested a meeting with us to talk about the testing. And Taylor's like, these conferences, who participated in those? Well, most of the time, to my memory, most of the time, like, how many did you guys have? Were you guys just having conferences every day with Othram? Most of the time, to my memory, it was usually Idaho State police detectives. The prosecutor's office might have been also privy to some of those discussions. Again, just general updates about where we were in the process. What? Dude, I can't work. You're calling me every 2 seconds. Like, I need to be able to work, you know? And Ann says, tell me about this meeting. It sounds like there was a big meeting that happened. Big hoopla. Woo! Yeah. Tell me about it, Daddy. Daddy Maddie. There was a meeting, to my knowledge, and I don't remember exactly when it was. You don't remember any dates, do you, Maddie? But I bet you remember what days you get paid, don't you? Yeah. Sit and spin. I don't remember exactly when, but probably the morning of December 10th. He doesn't remember, but probably the morning of December 10th. Motherfucker rips a date in the morning. I don't remember, but I'm going to go with December 10th in the morning. The fuck out. Okay, we're just pull that out of the fucking thin air. You know, when we had this big meeting, it was, again, over the telephone. My memory serves correct. It was with representatives from Moscow Police Department. I believe the FBI had representation. Idaho State Police, yeah, I believe they were there. Myself, legal counsel. Why would you need legal counsel there? He says legal counsel was on. Why is legal counsel on? What are you guys doing? Like, can I get some drugs? What's going on? Legal counsel, yeah. Does legal counsel, like, why would they be on that phone call? Anyways, he's like, yeah, legal counsel. And I believe that the colonel of the state police was also on the phone call. What? Ah, damn. See you, Lauren. We don't talk politics here. In that phone call, we were, she's like, Ann Sarah's like, what happened on that phone call? Like, damn, the colonel of the Idaho State, what? What happened on that phone call? Answer. In that phone call, we were asked to turn over any kind of investigative records that we had, any kind of information that we had, to the FBI team. They provided me with an email address to be able to provide what they were requesting from us, which was, listen to this. I'm going to let you see it here. He messes up, but he says the first part of it, which was, to my memory, it was the login information, essentially. Now, this is why it matters. The two databases searched. He was about to say it was the 2 databases searched, but he says the login information, essentially. And it might have been other things I'm not aware of, like packets and things. I'm not aware of the technical terms, but basically they were asking us to provide that information to the FBI investigator. Did you do that? Answer, yes. Question, do you know what you provided to the FBI investigator? So what we asked for, and then look at how he says this. So what we asked for, he's speaking about himself. What we asked for means he's asking Othram for. So what we asked for to be provided were the 2 database searches. And that's how I realized that what Daddy was saying up here, it was the 2. databases. It was, so what we asked for to be provided were the 2 database searches or information so that those could be independently searched. And we also asked them to cooperate and provide any information that they needed to be able to further investigate. He's all over the place, man. He's saying we's and I's and ho's and he's. Man, I'm asking what you did, Matt. What did you do? What were you involved in? Ann Taylor says, when you say 2 databases, do you mean the 2 genetic genealogy databases that allow law enforcement to search? Yes, to my knowledge. Though these samples were searched in 2, and it says samples plural. You guys, I have an issue with this. How is there samples plural? Like, what the fuck? They made 1 sample. Othram did 1 sample. Yes, to my knowledge, these samples were searched. What samples? What's going on here? Anyways, mind blowing. Now let's get to the big. I just want to end with a big boom. After Othram turns over whatever they turn over to the FBI, and you get the report, and they get paid. Is that the end of it with Othram for this case? And this is, remember I told you guys? I said, you heard here first. Othram was the lab that was used by the FBI. The FBI didn't go and use some other lab. It never left Othram, man. Answer. So it would just be yes or a no, motherfucker. Here's story time. So they provided to us a report after we had asked them to turn over all of the information to the investigating agency and to the FBI. And I said, investigating agency, that's MPD. So then the chain of custody wouldn't. Like, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Then you're just outing the whole fact that you changed the. Remember, this is in 2025. In 2023, they were like, hey, you need to change that form of custody. Well, he's testifying that, no, the chain of custody is actually correct. So they provided to us a report after we had asked them to turn over all the information to the investigating agency and to the FBI. They provided us with what was identified as a preliminary report. I believe they titled it that because it was not a final report. The testing, and then we had asked them to terminate the testing, but they were not at a final result of a name to provide to us. The testing was already done, bitch, because you got the SNP, motherfucker. That's the testing that Othram did, you lying sack of shit. The testing to make an SNP, the wet work was done, bitch. Come on, man. You're lying. He's just circle, circle, circle. Salad, salad. Oh, oh, oh. I mean, how his wife must be so proud. Or boyfriend, I don't know, husband. Why was the decision made for the FBI to take over this and not let Othram finish? Like, come on. Like, this is why when Othram wonders, the middlemans wonder why we think they can't get shit done and why they're not the best. This is why. This is all of my information comes from sworn testimony of a laboratory director who employed Othram to 6 figures. Like, dude, wow. Yeah, great question here, Ann. Why was the decision made for the FBI to take this over and not let Othram finish? Answer, I don't know. I can't speak to that. That's the least amount of things that he's ever said. In that meeting, there was nothing stated about why we were going to do this. Remember that big December 10th meeting? Dude, this guy just wants to get up there and turtle. Let's get turtled. He says, I don't recall specific reasons, but they had asked us to transfer everything to the FBI. Who, motherfucker? Who asked you to transfer it? And I can't believe that Ann Taylor didn't say who. It's because she already knows the answer. But she's not thinking in terms of, hey, the judge doesn't know the answer. So you need to say who. You say, they asked us to transfer everything to the FBI. Who is they? Who is they? Ann Taylor says, okay, did you take a look at the two profiles, the FBI S&P profile and Othrum's S&P profile? Have you ever looked at those? And this is where we get confirmation that there's two phones. One for the hood, one for the plug, two. Have you ever looked at those? Did we look at those or did I look at those? I will bend you over, Matthew. I know you ain't playing games with me on the stand. Ann says, did you? I did not. No. Have you seen them? No. Would it surprise you to know the FBI profile was over twice as big as Othrum's? And now this is where everybody should be like, Lana, wait, you're telling me that Othrum's the same lab that, wait, what? As in, yeah. There's a contract that Othram and the FBI signed in 2022, right before the killings, for $475,000. It's public knowledge. It's out there. Go back and check my old shit. I just can't keep like repumping the receipts, man. That's all I do is just pump receipts all day. Yes. And so that's why I'm saying the FBI fucks with Othram. Othram is the FBI's go-to because Othram's technology, aka the databases and all the what they're able to search, awesome. So the FBI wants the best. Yeah. So they got Othram and they signed a deal before this murder ever even happened, right before it. And so I said to myself, let's be realistic here. If I have Michael Jordan on my team, why the fuck would I take Michael Jordan out and put, I don't know, Mark Price in, and who I love, it's my favorite athlete of all time. You would never do that. You would never say, let me take it out of the hands of the best and put it into the hands of who the best beat every year. I mean, you could, but that'd be some fucked up shit. That logically does not compute with my brain. You would never do that. And all it is here is that Idaho State Police needed to wipe their hands. The lab needed to wipe their hands because it's all about discovery. It's all about the discovery. What can be discovered? What can Ann Taylor and the defense one day get their hands on? And so we need to do things so that it's really, really hard to discover what the hell went on. If God forbid, because that's all I think about is we have to be able to prosecute. We have to be able to prosecute. And so in order to prosecute, if we take it out of the hands of Idaho State Police being in charge of this avenue, and the FBI is in charge of this avenue, then nothing, it's going to be really hard. I should say it's not going to be able to be discovered, but it's going to be really hard to discover it. You're going to have to go through loops and hoops and pulls. And so, and when you listen to the middlemen's talk, they say, listen, all we did is we just did the SNP. We developed that. Then we had our genealogists working on it, and we have it right here who the genealogists were. You want me to give you guys their names? I have no problem saying their names. It's out there. I'll say it. Let me pull it up. They have two dudes that signed NDAs with Othram in September of 2021. And let me get... Okay, first guy. Okay, well, David Middleman signed obviously he signed on the 21st day of November of 2022 that he was going, obviously a confidentiality. John Fondon signed on the 21st day of November of 2022. And Kristen Middleman signed. So there you go. Fondon. According to Othram, the FBI went rogue, and they did. They did go rogue. They took, hey, we created this SNP, right? But the question now is asked is, did you know that there were two? So if we were just supposed to turn over everything and give it to the FBI, then how are we ending up with two different, would it surprise you to know that the FBI profile was over twice as big as Othram's? Okay. Again, he says, I have no knowledge of what the FBI did or didn't do. And that was the most important thing. That's all he wanted to testify to this whole time, is to say, I have no idea what the FBI did. Because it's government funded. It's federally funded. Idaho State Police Lab is federally funded. Big deal. He said, she's like, how involved were you with the FBI's process of their genetic genealogy? He says, I was not involved other than to provide the samples. And that's what keeps messing me up, is when he keeps saying to provide the samples. He should be saying to provide the sample. You know what I mean? The samples, like that doesn't, why are you saying S there? And so I'm over here just like, dude, I want Othram to blow the lid on all this. I want them, because they are so good at what they do. Right? Somebody's lying. So who's going to be the person to call it out? If you want IGG to take over in terms of being used immediately in an investigation, you have to have ethics. You have to be in compliance. Well, all I've seen is, how can we cut corners? What can we do to roll under the radar of discovery for the defense one day? I mean, come on. And that's why I think Kristen Middleman said the FBI went rogue. Because I think Kristen Middleman would sit down, and I think David would say the same thing, and they would sit down with the people and be like, dude, you put us in a really messed up situation. And they claim that this gag order is why all this misinformation is out there. That is so not true. The gag order is not why there's so misinformation out there. Okay? This testimony, these reports, okay, these aren't clearing up anything other than making it look way worse. Way worse. I mean, why are you deleting the IGG? You created an assignment for IGG, then you delete it. That's where all of what Matthew Gamut's talking about, he should be documenting. That's where all of that would be found. They would, like, just because Othram does their things, whatever they do it does not change how Idaho State Police does their things. Every time you talk to somebody, Matthew, why aren't you documenting it? And if you think that people underneath you should be doing that type of work, then you should have assigned those people to do that type of work. You should have had them in on the phone calls, and then you should have said, now go document. Now go document. Now go document. Question. Have you become aware that they search databases that are not allowed to be searched by law enforcement? Answer. Pure speculation is all I know, but I have no firsthand knowledge of anything. Okay, fair enough. Thanks for that. Oh, I just have a couple questions about some documentation. Sure. The document that gave recommendations for you to call someone of the four brothers, where is that? Because she went back and talked to, where is it that, where's the documentation of them asking you to do that? He says, answer. So I believe that was provided to us over the phone. I don't think there was like an official report. I don't think there was an email. I think it was names provided over the phone. And then those names were actually provided as part of that report that came several days after. the conclusion of testing. And then now here, this is how I'm ending things. He's saying basically there's no report and there's nothing because it was all over the phone. Now here's firsthand, this is a lie. Yes, 100% it happened over the phone. I don't dispute that at all. But what I do dispute is here it is. This is how you document things. When you have a phone conversation, you personally go into your database and you pull up whatever assignment it is, and it's the IGG number 9. You would have gone under IGG number 9 and you would have wrote in on this date, I had this type of a phone conversation, and whatever it was about, that's what you're supposed to do. And I want to know why Matthew Gamet did not follow his own protocols with IGG. And you're going to have to sit here and say, Matthew, I asked you questions January 25th of 2025 at a different proceeding. Did I not? And he's going to say, yep, I was here. Yep, you asked me questions. And so I asked you where the reports were. And you said because, so I believe that was provided us by the phone, right? And then she says, okay, so you recognize those names from that report? Yes, he says, those had been provided to us before. Question, the work that you were doing before trying to call one of the brothers, where did you keep your documents for that? Answer, as far as the records that, I'm sorry, I'm confused on the question. Question, let me ask it better. You did some work, research work, before you and Detective Gooch made the phone calls to one of the 4 brothers, right? And kind of built out a family tree and did some other research. Where did you keep that? Answer, those were paper copies, and those were just retained and then sent to Othram as part of us communicating back to them. Basically say, exactly, so you emailed them that? You sent paper. Come on, dude, it's 2025. It's 2022 at the time, 2023. And you're going to sit here and get on the stand, Matthew Gamet? Ann Taylor's asking you, you didn't document what you were doing. Like, we know right here. It's called case correspondence. Ann Taylor knows this is how the Idaho State Police Forensic Services communicates. Everything must be done this way. And IGG had its own, here it is. Sequence number 9. Sequence 9 that you had deleted. Sequence 9, right here. This was written up on 11/21/2022. And then somebody had Catherine Dace go in there on 3/13/2023 when shit started getting heavy and hot, and Ann Taylor's asking questions about IGG. Well, guess what? Somebody went in there. Or this is the reason she asked the questions, which is that she was able to see this because it got slipped up through the cracks. But right here, assignment status changed and it's changed to administration closed. Reason, no longer required. And see how it says section biology? It's because it was a biology sample that went out. Comments, assignment created for IGG, no report will be issued as no new testing was performed. He just testified that there was a final report that eventually made its way. Do you still have a copy of those? He says, yes. Did you document your attempt to get a voluntary sample from one of the brothers? I do not believe so. Do you know if Detective Gooch wrote up a police report about that? I do not know. Well, I do. And the answer is no, she did not. Question, did she provide any of her notes to you, her investigative notes? Do you guys know how detailed Detective Gooch is? Do you guys have any idea? Detective Gooch is one of the most detailed oriented detectives in Idaho State Police database. She brought it in her interview skills with Dylan. She wrote a 10 to 12 page report on that interview with Dylan Mortensen. Did she provide any of her notes to you, her investigative notes? Not to me. I don't know if she kept notes. Okay. Did you watch her write anything down? I did not. We were over the phone, I believe, at that point. Question. Oh, so it would be hard to see then. Answer. Or he doesn't answer that. Have you Have you seen any documentation from that December 10th meeting? Answer, not to my knowledge. Going back, let's take a look to see how everything usually is supposed to flow. Here's what happens when there's meetings. Again, ready? 11:25. She's having phone conversations. She's writing it down. Remember the 11:20? Here it is. 11:20 meeting. Huge meeting. Matthew Gamet. Riley Nolan writes it down. Somebody told Riley Nolan to knock this off, and I want to know who did it. Meeting with Matthew Gamet. Katie Dace, right there. This is how things are supposed to be documented. They know how to document things. He is the lab director. He is the lab goddamn director. And he literally, I mean, Ann Taylor was going to have a field day with him. The lab director is instructing people and himself not to follow protocol. Okay, any documentation that comes your way from the FBI's work? He says, not to my knowledge. Question, have you turned over your work with the genetic genealogy, the help you were giving Othram? Have you turned that over to the prosecutor? Ready for this? I have not turned over physical copies of anything. I believe that our agency complied with the discovery request. I don't know exactly what was provided as part of that discovery request. Certainly, it is in an email document from me to Othram Laboratories, and as such, I would assume that that would have gone as part of the discovery request. So here he's admitting, I have emails with Othram, and then I'm over here like, where are those emails? Question, are you talking about the discovery request that the defense made? Because she's made 24 independent requests that all had like 100 requests within one submission. Answer, I'm not exactly sure. We were just asked to comply. You know, we know that he says, we know that at any point our emails are discoverable. Exactly, you know that. So therefore you don't use email. How about Dropbox, baby? Let's talk about Dropbox. We know that at any point our emails are discoverable. And I believe the way the agency, the way that ISP handles discovery requests, large discovery requests especially, is to do a quote email pull of anything that might be related to the case. It's exactly what they do. That's why when you write a FOIA request, I want an email pull. I think that the area, okay, so then Ann Taylor says, question, I think that the area that I'm concerned about, and I do have a lot of emails, so thank you for that, the procedures and protocols from Othram that you know about, that you've read, where are they? And this is where Ann Taylor was like, we never got this. He says, so those protocols would have been back in 2021, I believe, from when we initially did the RFP. I believe it's the RFP process. I'm not completely familiar. It might be an intent to bid. I'm not sure what to call the process. Regardless, when that process was going through, they could or would have provided those documents to us at that point. And I believe those documents likely exist. And Sarah says, okay, any of the work that Othram did in getting from DNA sample all the way down to S&P profile, where are they? She doesn't have them. This is January of 2025. Answer, where is the documentation of that? I do not have that documentation. That was not provided to us, to my knowledge. And I don't know everything that was provided back to the laboratory potentially, but to my knowledge, we were not provided with that information. She says, would Othram have it? Potentially, I don't know. Question, the work that they did to come up with a name to give to you for further investigation, where are those documents? Answer, I don't know. Question, and your documents, some went to Othram, but you still have a copy of those? I do have a copy of those. Ms. Taylor says, I think that's it. Thank you very much. That's all from me for now. And then Mr. Nye says, no questions, Your Honor. So I spent this afternoon, and I'm going to share with you guys, show you something. Okay. This is text message between Jeffrey Talbot and Janine Ayers. It's Janine to Jeffrey, so she's on this side. November 16th. Do you have the suspect's residence locked down? Are you getting a search warrant for it? November 16th. Okay. Who is the suspect that she thinks that we're locking down? Okay. Like, what? He doesn't respond. 3 hours later, we are past Grangeville, just past Cottonwood. Go ahead and Google where that's at on the map. He says, okay. Now, this is a report, a handwritten report from going into Brian Culver's office. Okay. Martinez, Mowry. Tara Martinez works for the lab. Mowry is Detective Mowry. Talbot is Jeffrey Talbot. ISP, MPD, the lab. I mean, he's basically lab. They opened the desk drawer and searched, blah, 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 attempt to open file cabinet drawers, but all 5 drawers are locked. Locked. You see that? Locked. Martinez photographs the contents of desks and drawers for documentation. Oh, goodness. There's Detective Mowry. Just when I wanted to keep this at an hour, I had to continue going because I cannot leave out these bombs. You guys, I thought there was nothing in here. I thought there was nothing in anything, right? It's so sparse. This is the office, right? It's so sparse, blah, blah, blah. Awesome, great. Well, here, Martinez, Mowry, Talbot, they opened the desk drawers and searched the cabinets or search or whatever the hell this is. They attempted to open the file cabinet, the drawers for the cabinet, but all 5 drawers are locked. Did they ever get into those drawers? Bless you. Bless me. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Now, a couple other things I'm looking into. Because there was 4 desks there, okay? There was nothing in this office. And so that would also, like, none of those other people had anything, right? So it's not like that would be normal. Like, it's not what you think. It's not like this office. It's like a TAs, they just, hey, this is what you're going to use when you're here, type of thing. Same thing when I was in school. Like, it was a joke. All right. Question. I was going through because I was like, I think that it was be important to document all the lighting in the house that was on, right? All the lights that were on in and at 1122 King Road, right? Well, you can't find this type of documentation on 1122 King Road, but if you look at this, which is of the apartment that Brian had, right here, the south wall of the living room has a door that opens to the exterior patio. To the north of the television stand, there was a table with 1 lamp powered off. Well, why didn't we see that type of documentation on the home? Because the lighting in that house matters, right? Yeah, it would matter a lot. Next. Now, ready for this? From the written notes. Blank has 4 desks. That's the office address. There was also a filing cabinet and shelving. So you're going to sit here and tell me that if we didn't get our hands on this to document the fact that, where is it? You're going to tell me that Detective Mowry is once again in this bullshit of, okay, the cabinet. Oh, well, how come when the written report, how come that got left out? The fact that the file cabinet was locked. The 5 drawers were locked. How come in the report that was then typed up, Blank has 4 desks. There was also a filing cabinet and shelving. I took photographs for overall location, identification, and condition. No items were collected or tested. Why aren't we writing the fact that you actually could not get into the filing cabinets because they were locked? So we have no idea what was actually in the filing cabinets, right? None. But they make it seem like that there was nothing of evidentiary value in there. What if Brian Colbert had a whole manifesto in there that says, I worked for the cops and I was buying and selling drugs for them and we were doing X, Y, and Z? I mean, this to me is just, how does somebody look at their notes and think I'm going to only write this part of it, which is, I think a very important part would be I have to write that I could not get into the filing cabinets because they were locked. Don't you think that I should be putting that in? How important do you think that would be? These are the notes that I took, and now I have to take my notes and I have to write up a typed up report. Okay. And I have this available, and I'm literally typing at my desk, and I just think to myself, I'm going to leave out the fact that the filing cabinet was fucking locked. Why would I ever leave that out? Then I saw that Neil Uhrig, Post Falls PD, entered the room, as well as Daniels. And I'm like, wait, what? It's a big old party. There's a big old party in that office. Why was Neil Uhrig there? What? He's the guy. The most important part here is that you're not, fuck if they got into it or not. You go back to your desk and you have in front of you your notes that you wrote all out, right? That you wrote all this out. Why are you then sitting down at your desk and typing up and leaving out the most important part, which would be the fact that we weren't able to get into these filing cabinets? And I think I should probably mention that, because why did I write it down here if I didn't think that it was important? I think that somebody probably told this broad, whoever the notes these are, not to write it in her report. I mean, I don't know. Or she's just deciding on her own. She thinks it's important. Woo, woo, woo. But guess what? When I'm going to type this up, and then I can just say, oh, I must have forgot it. Because then you're going to make a defense attorney do what? I need to see the written notes to see what was left out. And people could say, like, Lana, you're just nitpicking. No, I'm not. Nitpicking what? The fact that she decided on her own accord to have her notes next to her while she's typing at her desk and say, you know what? I'm going to talk about a filing cabinet and make it seem like I got it in there when I did not. That's what she makes this. That's what you would think. You would think from this typed up version that the office had 4 desks. There was also a filing cabinet and shelving. I took photographs of the overall location, identification, and condition. No items were collected or tested. We cleared the scene at approximately 21:55. Well, Can we talk about the fact that let's talk about who was all present here. Detective Mowry was present there. Talbot was present there. Then Neil Uhrig comes on through. Then, when that wasn't enough, Danny Vargas from the Moscow Police Department was present. Wait a second, what? And none of this was documented. Like, you have to go to these notes. Vargas, Moscow Police Department, was present in building, but didn't what? Let's get that. Was present in building, but didn't take, but didn't. And then there was something redacted because there was more, but didn't. I mean, I'm gonna have to go digging now. Bottom story. Why is any of this stuff redacted? Anyways, this is absolutely wild. Wild beyond wild. Dawn Daniel was there from WSU. It was like a big old party in that office. And I think everybody wanted to be there because I wanted to see. I think these people wanted to see in person what could potentially be in that office that could potentially what. Remember the big thing about this from the beginning is that all of this needed to be sealed and nobody could see anything because it posed a danger. Mind blowing. All right, you guys rock. Fist for Becca, $5. Dawn Gates, aka Malison, can't wait, getting popcorn. Kaya Moon, hey Hector, appreciate you. Post Woke World, thanks, and I appreciate you. Also, you're super, super nice. Super, super duper nice. Here to witness the chaos in real time. Let's get this started. It's completely crazy. Perjury is not a thing in Idaho. That's all I know. Ash, you got some explaining to do. Thanks, Len. I appreciate that you explain the things I can't comprehend. I try. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Thank you there, Brandy J, the hype girl. Boya around and find out. You're super, super nice, Lana. Thank you. I try to be super, super nice. 11 more to go. I think we did pretty good. Oh, yeah, guys, that's right. I got 65,000 subscribers. Thank you. So many bad actors. Brandy J hyping it up. Look at you, girl. Kylie says, congratulations, 65,000. 65,000 and 7 scandals. Bless you, Lana. Sarah, what's good, girl? 13 months, man. Making it pop over here. Now, the last thing is, yes, Hector is super trustworthy. If Hector shows it, I believe it. Let's take a look at, Nunes wrote up the search warrant. And so the last couple minutes here, you're going to see the search warrant. Take pictures, do whatever you want. Let me get to that one. 1 second. Oh, the other person's name was Andrew Singer. Andrew Singer from Othram. Andrew Singer. And then so this is Jack Decor giving permission to go inside his apartment and go looking through his shit. This is his actual like handwriting and everything. On 11/18, they got him to fill this out. There you go. So when entering apartment, right door of complex, keep going straight, not up the stairs. You will enter a second door. There is a laundry room shared by the four of my roommates, along with the 2 people that live above us. Outside door code is this. Unit door code is this. Room location, inside unit, blank. After walking in the front door, take a right into the kitchen. Attached to the living room is 2 bedrooms. Mine is the one on the right, closer to the kitchen. He signed this at 8:41 p.m., 11/18/2022, giving Mike Van Leuven permission to go. And this is what he signed. To search his place. Then let me go. Okay. So this is something that I want to prove and show that they acted like they were all about these latent prints, okay? So take a look. This is latent number 5. And do you see how it says on 11/21/2022 at 8:02 and 27 seconds? Search the regions: Arkansas, Montana, Nevada, Oregon, Utah, Washington, Wyoming. I don't know what that says. Yet they did not go and obtain anybody's prints. They were so interested in these and acting like they were all about getting information on these prints, but they didn't do anything with actually their, they asked Jack Decor and Jack Showalter and other people, like they're not getting their prints. They're not asking people for prints. They don't obtain any prints from anybody until like years after Brian Kober was arrested. So it's like, if you truly believe in this latent print and that it's like you're really after somebody because of the prints, then why aren't you really trying to we want to eliminate you. Prints are going to eliminate you. Okay. There was no efforts. And so it's like, what are you doing? And here's the proof. This is the pudding. Here's the proof of the dates of all of this stuff. And yet you're not going and trying to get anybody's prints. And it's like, why not? This is what you're so all about. 1120 FBI region. So like then they start working with the DOJ, like California, and it's let me go up a little bit more. Okay. Matthew Gamet to act like they were concerned with the amount, preserving the amount is just wow. Like, mind blowing. Here's a really good look at how this works. So you can't just go in and make a mistake. Like when you go in and make a submission, so submission number 16 here, for example, it tells you like the lab code, submitting agency, Moscow Police Department, or you can like switch it to like whoever it was. Okay. Here's Justin Blaker, United Parcel Services. Elimination prints from whatever, elimination prints. And case number. When does it say that this was entered though? Oh, it does it on its own too. I am not sure how this was corrected the last time. However, I have 2 sets of elimination prints to submit for the Moscow case, and the lab number or item numbers need to be corrected before they can be submitted from Candy to Forensic Services. Moscow did not enter subject names for these. So below is what should be entered. Lab item 128, name. Lab item 129, name. Okay. So what I was doing from this though is I was able to look at this stuff and consider like who actually would have entered in the name Brian Cover to the system. Who went in there and submitted his name and didn't put any biological like there was nothing to be tested, there was nothing with it. It was just the names. And then Candy, with cases over 100 items, we are still seeing the sync for item numbers not working properly. I have manually created the submissions and items per your email, and they are ready for you. A new LP assignment was also created. You will need to get in and manually print the item labels for these items. Please also attach any documentation you receive with these items and make a note in case correspondence. Now, this is what I think is interesting. I don't know when this was responded to, but look at this date that April 13th. There was one before that. Somebody wrote on April 3rd. Bill Thompson's writing them. I mean, here's Bill Thompson. From Bill Thompson, Ashley Jennings, Dustin Blaker, Catherine Dace, Darren Gilbertson. Permission to consume for trash collection submitting this morning. Wednesday, December 28th, 9:09 a.m. Consider it confirmed. You may consume items from PA as necessary to develop DNA profiles, plural. Okay. Good morning. In our meeting yesterday, you gave verbal authorization to consume items as necessary to develop DNA profiles from the items of trash. Would you mind confirming this in writing? We will add it to our case documentation. So do you see all this shit? Now you're going to sit here and tell me that the DNA supervisor, Forensic Sciences 3, Katie Dace, doesn't know what to do. She knows exactly what to do. She knows exactly what to do. They know how to document things. They know how to you're using this to write down everything. And then literally in the mix of using IGG and other communications, everything is supposed to go silent. And so that's what Anne would be showing, is that you know what to do, so why wouldn't you do it? Why would you go in there and delete that? You know there had to be talks about all this IGG stuff. And in fact, if you weren't in on that talks, then why are you the person that's going in and deleting something? I would not let any of these people off the hook. You guys, this is not their first rodeo. I'm behaving this way. See you on the next one.